In Surah Ahzab, the words used to convey this meaning are فَمَتِّعُوهُنَّ وَسَرِّحُوهُنَّ سِرَاحًا جَمِيلًا, or but give them some resources of life and part with them in a befitting manner. In Surah Baqarah, this same directive has been given to husbands for wives whom they divorced without touching them or without fixing their dower. According to the Quran, the amount of these resources should be ascertained keeping in view the norms of the society and the financial status of the husband. The Quran says, وَمَتِّعُوهُنَّ عَلَى الْمُوسِعِ قَدَرُهُ وَعَلَى الْمُقْتِرِ قَدَرُهُ مَتَاعًا بِالْمَعْرُوفِ حَقًّا عَلَى الْمُحْسِنِينَ, and bestow on them some resources of life while parting from them, the wealthy according to his means and the poor according to his means. This is an obligation on those who are righteous. Surah number 2, verse 236. It is evident from these words that this is an obligation on the husband. If a person does not fulfill it, he might not be liable to any legal action because this is something which pertains to a person's inner piety and virtue, but he would definitely be held liable in the hereafter before his Lord, and in the hereafter the weight and the import of his virtuous deeds would suffer. 4. If a husband revokes his decision within the iddat, the lady will continue to remain his wife. But does this mean that a husband can divorce his wife repeatedly in this fashion whenever he wants and then revoke the decision within the iddat? The Quran has answered this question by saying that a person can only twice exercise this right of divorcing his wife in the iddat and then revoking the decision in his marriage with the lady. The words used are الطلاق مرتان فإمساك بالمعروف أو تسريح بإحسان, or this divorce may be pronounced twice, and then a woman must be retained with kindness or allowed to go with kindness. That is, if a person divorces his wife and revokes his decision within the iddat, then he can exercise this right one more time in his life in his marriage. However, once he has used this authority twice, he can no longer use it again for the third time. In such a situation, his wife would be permanently separated from him except if she marries some other person and he then also divorces her. The Quran says, فَإِن طَلَّقَهَا فَلَا تَحِلُّ لَهُ مِن بَعْدُ حَتَّى تَنْكِحَ زَوْجًا غَيْرَهُ فَإِن طَلَّقَهَا فَلَا جُنَاحَ عَلَيْهِمَا أَن يَتَرَاجَعَا إِن ظَنَّا أَن يُقِيمَا حُدُودَ اللَّهِ وَتِلْكَ حُدُودُ اللَّهِ يُبَيِّنُهَا لِقَوْمٍ يَعْلَمُونَ. Then if a husband divorces his wife for the third time, he cannot marry her until she is wedded another man. Then if this second husband also divorces her, it shall be no offense for either of them to return to each other, if they think that they can now keep within the limits set by God. And such are the bounds of God. He makes them clear to men who want to gain knowledge. Surah number 2, verse 230. In case the same husband and wife want to remarry one another, the above quoted verse of the Quran has imposed 3 restrictions on them. Firstly, the wife should formalize her nikah or marriage with some other person. Secondly, the second husband divorces her because for some reason the marriage cannot be pulled along. Thirdly, the two think that after remarriage, the two would be able to remain within the bounds set by God. In the first and second conditions, the word nikah only implies the legal marital knot, and the word divorce implies the divorce that one gives one's wife when it is no longer possible to keep the marriage intact. Imam Amin Ahsan Islahi writes, the real thing is that nikah is a known term referring to a marriage contract which takes place between a man and a woman with the intention of living together forever in the bond of matrimony. If this intention does not exist in a nikah, then in reality it is not a nikah. It is more of a plot conspired by a man and a woman. The option of divorce in marriage upheld by the Shariah is not part of the original scheme. It is only a last resort to deal with insolvable situations. Consequently, the true nature of a nikah is that it should be solemnized with the intention of living together as husband and wife permanently. If a person honors a nikah only for a certain fixed period, then this is called muta, and it is totally prohibited in Islam. Similarly, if a person solemnizes a nikah with a lady and then divorces her just to provide her with a legal excuse to marry the first husband, then in religious parlance this is called halala, and like muta, it is also totally prohibited in Islam. A person who does such a despicable thing is like a pimp or a pander, or as the hadith says, that such a person plays the role of a rented out bull for breeding. And a person who does this and he who has it done are cursed by the Almighty. Amin Hasan Islahi, Tadabbur Quran, Volume 1, page 537. The third condition has been imposed in order to make divorce a very serious affair, so that people do not carelessly indulge in it. They should only divorce their wives while remaining fearful of the Almighty, and when they think that there is no possibility of keeping the marriage intact. Similarly, when they embark upon marrying someone, they should do so with sincerity of purpose and with the intention of creating a harmonious relationship. It is not befitting for a believer to adopt an attitude contrary to this. Our jurists add to the above mentioned three conditions and say that the lady can only be divorced from this second husband once the two have had sexual intercourse. Without this, she is not legally allowed to become the wife of her first husband. They generally present the following three reasons in support of their view. Firstly, the word tankiha, or she marries, has been used by the Quran. In this verb, the act of marriage has been attributed to the lady. However, since a lady does not contract marriage, rather a man does, so the word tankiha here necessarily implies sexual intercourse. Secondly, the word zawjan ghayra, or another husband, are used after tankiha. The word zawjan is clearly pointing to the fact that the marriage has already taken place. Hence, it is imperative that the verb tankiha here should necessarily imply sexual intercourse. Thirdly, it has been reported that once the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ stopped a lady from marrying her first husband by saying that she is not legally allowed to marry him until she has had sexual intercourse with the first husband. The answer to the first and second of these arguments is clearly given by the Quran. It says, وَإِذَا تَلَّقْتُمُ النِّسَاءَ فَبَلَغْنَ أَجَلَهُنَّ فَلَا تَعْذُلُوهُنَّ أَن يَنكِحْنَ أَزْوَاجَهُنَّ. And when you have divorced your wives and they have reached the end of their waiting period, do not prevent them from marrying their future husbands. Surah number 2, verse 232. It is evident from this verse that the act of marriage has been attributed to the lady, and the word azwajahunna is used in the same sense as zawjan ghayra. But it is obvious that the words an yankihna refer to the marital knot and cannot in any way be construed for sexual intercourse. Moreover, it is quite strange to contend that the act of marriage cannot be attributed to the lady. One might dare ask that if this is not possible, then can sexual intercourse be attributed to her? Viewed on similar grounds, it is a man who in fact does it and not a woman. As far as the third argument is concerned, it has arisen because of not understanding a hadith. The way Imam Bukhari has recorded in his Al-Jami as-Sahih clearly shows that the lady had gotten married only to become legally permissible for the first husband. Consequently, when she lied by saying that her husband was unable to establish marital contact with her, the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ scolded her and told her that she could now only go back to the first husband after tasting her second husband. This, of course, is not a condition that he imposed. It is the case of stating an impossibility, the implied meaning being that if, according to her, her second husband does not have the ability to copulate with her, then she can only be divorced from him after he copulates with her. which of course he will never, since, according to her, he is not capable of it. Thus, if anything can be adduced from this hadith, it is the prohibition of halala. It does not in any way support the view of the jurists. The translation of the text of the hadith is as follows. Ikrimah narrates that Rafa divorced his wife. Thereafter she married Abdurrahman ibn Zubair al-Khurzi. Aisha says that she came to her wearing a green cloak and complained of her husband and showed her her bruises. Women do help one another. So when the Prophet came by, Aisha Radhiyallahu anha said, I have only seen Muslim women being treated in such a way. Her skin is greener than her cloak. Ikrimah says that when her husband came to know that she had complained to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he also came over to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam along with his 2 sons from his other wife. Upon seeing her husband, she got hold of the end of her cloak, letting it hang from her hand, and remarked, My only complaint is that whatever he has is no more than this soft cloth. At this, Abdurrahman said, O Prophet of God, she has told a lie. I am very strong and can satisfy her. The truth of the matter is that she is disobedient and wants to go back to Rafah. When the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam heard this, he said, If this is the case, then you shall not be permissible for Rafah unless Abdurrahman tastes you. Then upon seeing the sons of Abdurrahman, the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam remarked, Are these your sons? When he replied in the affirmative, the Prophet Muhammad said, Do you tell such lies, O Abdurrahman's wife? By God, these young boys resemble Abdurrahman more than a crow resembles another crow. Al-Bukhari, Al-Jami al-Sahih, page 1027, hadith number 5825.